Welcome to Cambridge English with Jen. Today we're going to look at the C1 Writing Part 1, the essay. Most students lose marks in writing Part 1, not because their English is bad, but because their structure is unclear. Cambridge is really big on structure. So today we're going to take a real exam task question and walk through the exact 4-paragraph structure that you should use to get the highest score possible. I'll show you what to include in each paragraph and I'll model each of the sections for you so you can see exactly what the examiners want. So let's begin by taking a real exam style question. A topic that's really popular at the moment is the impact of social media on young people. Now in C1 Writing Part 1, you'll be given a question like this. You've recently taken part in a discussion, or your English teacher has recently taught you about this topic, and they'll give you a question and 3 bullet points. So the one we're going to look at today is the impact of social media on young people. And the 3 options that we have are creative opportunities, exposure to advertising, and sharing and receiving information. And your task is to write an essay discussing 2 of the ways in which social media has an impact on young people. You should explain which way is more significant and provide reasons to support your opinion. So before we get into it, let's take a look at what examiners actually want. What are they marking you on? Examiners are looking for clear organization. Are your paragraphs in a specific order? Can they read through it? Do your ideas make sense? Have you expressed a clear opinion? Have you used clear linking between your paragraphs? And have you achieved the task? So have you actually answered the question that they set for you? Notice here that I didn't say perfect grammar or advanced vocabulary. These things do help, but structure is what gets you the marks. Cambridge don't just mark on language, they mark on content, communication, and organization as well. Okay, so let's break it down. Let's take a look at the 4-paragraph structure that you can use in any C1 essay part 1. You okay, bud? So you walk into the exam room, you see your task. Before you start writing anything, I really want you to get into the habit of making a plan. Writing out your ideas so you know what you're going to write about before you start writing can really help you gain those marks on organization and communication because your ideas are not all over the place. You've taken 5 minutes or a couple of minutes before you start writing to gather your ideas. It makes such a big difference. So this question that we're looking at about the impact of social media tells us that we need to choose 2 options and we need to express preference for one of those options. You need to choose 2 that you actually have something to say. You have 2 that you can write about clearly. So in this case, we've got the options of creative opportunities, exposure to advertising, and sharing and receiving information. If it were me, I would choose creative opportunities and exposure to advertising because I think those 2 contrast quite nicely and I have more to say than I would have to say about sharing and receiving information. So a small plan could look something like this. Taking your 2 options and writing a couple of bullet points underneath each option so that you have ideas that you can talk about. So for creative opportunities, we've got young people can express themselves, they can develop skills, which they can then build into portfolios and even careers. And creative opportunities, social media encourages innovation and confidence. Whereas on the other hand, exposure to advertising, young people are targeted by brands, by influencers. This can affect self-esteem, spending habits, and perhaps even body image. It's often quite subtle and hard to recognize, and advertising can be manipulative. Also get clear on which one are you going to choose that has the most impact, in this case, on young people. I'm going to go for exposure to advertising. Sometimes the question is you're considering different areas for funding. For example, your local government wants to spend more on funding in the local community, and they're considering libraries, parks, and sports facilities. So you would be expected to choose two of those and then say which one you think ultimately should get the funding. Hi, bud. Do you want to join in? Kill me then. Right, let's take a look at the 4-paragraph structure that you can use for every single essay, for every single C1 Part 1 writing task. It can look like this. Paragraph 1 is always your introduction, and your introduction should rephrase the question in some way, mention all 3 of the options. This is really important because this is a place where people often drop marks, is that they don't mention that third option. You should also mention the 2 which you're going to discuss and hint at or quickly sort of suggest your preference, suggest which one is more significant or which one is going to get the funding depending on the question. So what would that actually look like? So remember, the question is asking about social media's impact on young people. Here's a model introduction that you can take a look at here. Social media affects young people in several ways, including offering creative opportunities, exposing them to advertising, and enabling the sharing of information. So in that one sentence, we've mentioned all 3 options. This essay will focus on creative opportunities and exposure to advertising, as these have the most direct influence on young people's development. What have you seen? His arch enemy, the cat, lives opposite, and he's a little bit grumpy with the cat, aren't you? So we've said in this introduction, we've mentioned the 3 options, we've said which 2 options the essay is going to focus on, and now we're going to say which one we're going to give preference to. Overall, exposure to advertising has a more significant impact on young people as it can shape their behavior and attitudes in powerful ways. So we've ticked all of those boxes. We've rephrased the question, we've mentioned all 3 options, we've mentioned the 2 that we're going to focus on in the essay, and we've said which one we're going to give preference to. Are you okay? So in paragraph 2, this should be all about your first main point. In this case, it's creative opportunities. So this paragraph needs a clear topic sentence, a clear explanation, an example, and a link back to the question. So we can take the ideas that we wrote out in the beginning in our plan and start to put these into a fully formed paragraph, which could look something like this. One important impact of social media is the creative opportunities it provides. Many young people use platforms like Instagram or TikTok to experiment with photography, video editing, and design, which helps them develop valuable digital skills. This creative freedom can boost confidence and even lead to future career paths. Perfect, that's all we need to say. We've mentioned creative opportunities, we've said how they can be useful for young people, and now we're going to contrast that with our second point, which is the exposure to advertising. So in this paragraph 3 is where you discussed your second option, and this should be the one that you think is the most significant, or the one that's going to get the funding, or the one that has the greatest impact. And we can again revert back to our plan in which we've written down some ideas that we have. So we're not just writing on the go. We know exactly what we're going to write about. All we need to do is put them into full sentences. However, so contrasting from the positives of social media, however, exposure to advertising has a far greater influence on young people. Social media platforms are filled with targeted ads and influencer promotions, which can strongly affect young people's self-esteem and spending habits. Because this type of advertising is often subtle, it can shape their attitudes and behavior without them realizing it. Again, simple ideas, but very clear what we're talking about, what we're saying. We're not just saying things for the sake of saying things. We've made a point, we've given examples, and we've explained why we've given that example and why we've made that point. And now you're coming to your 4th and final paragraph. Your fourth paragraph is the conclusion. And in this paragraph, it should be short and simple. It should summarize your two main points, restate your preference or restate which one you think should get funding or whatever it is. In this paragraph as well, buddy, it's important that you don't add any new ideas. You don't need to say anything new at this point. You're just summarizing everything that you've already said. So paragraph 4 would look something like this. All things considered, while social media offers valuable creative opportunities, the impact of advertising is more significant due to its powerful influence on young people's behavior and decision making. So we've said nothing new, but we've again mentioned the two options. We've said which one is more significant, and then we've just concluded. Easy peasy. 4 paragraphs that you can use for every single C1 Part 1. Like I said at the beginning of this video, Cambridge marks you on your content and your structure and your organization. So if you can get your ideas organized and into this really simple 4-paragraph structure, you're already going to get more marks than if you're just writing with no kind of plan. Before we finish, here are a couple of mistakes that I see students make often, and I'm mentioning them so that you can hopefully avoid making them in your exam. The first mistake is only mentioning the 2 options in paragraph 1. Cambridge wants you to reflect on the fact that you've read the question, you've seen that there are 3 options. So mention all 3 of them and then express which 2 you're going to write about. Another mistake that people make quite often is that they forget to express the preference. They forget to say which one's most significant, which one has the greatest impact, or which one they think should get the funding, depending on the question. Another mistake is writing too much or too little. Remember, in Cambridge C1 level, you need to be writing between 220 and 260 words. Overcomplicating vocabulary. Right in your exam, it's not a time for you to start showing off or using words that you're not comfortable using. It's better that you use words that you know make sense, that you use grammatical structures that you know how to use and use them correctly, rather than trying to write things in an overly complicated way. A lot of people think that when they're at C1 level, they need to sound really sophisticated and formal. And yes, you do to a point, but it's better that you focus on things like organizing your ideas, expressing yourself clearly, rather than using really, really complicated vocabulary that perhaps you're not using it in the right way. Weak topic sentences, I mentioned this before, so don't just write sentences to write sentences. Everything needs to make sense. So if you write a point, you want to explain that point and give an example about it, because the question asks you to provide reasons. And the final mistake people make is not answering the question directly. Really make sure you've read the question, you've chosen which 2 options you're going to focus on, why you're going to focus on those ones, which one's going to get preference, and then, like I said, briefly mention the 3rd option only in the introduction. In your conclusion, no new ideas, just again expressing which ones you've talked about, summarizing what you've already said, and one more time expressing which one you think should get the funding or has the most impact or whatever it is. So if you avoid these mistakes, your score will definitely improve. And that's it. I hope that this video was helpful for you for C1 Writing Task Part 1. If you want weekly writing feedback, a personalised study plan, private one-to-one classes with me, and calm support through WhatsApp while preparing for your C1 exam, I'm opening a small mentorship soon. It's called the C1 Success Program, and we'll be working together for 6 months to take you all the way to passing your Cambridge C1 exam. So if you want early access or more information, click the link in the description to this video or comment C1 and I'll send you all the information. Hope to see you soon, and yeah, good luck with your C1 exam preparation.